All righty, folks. Welcome back to the show where the stakes have never been higher as we battle for the Iron Throne. And folks, if you want to go to a place where it feels like the stakes have never been higher, get to Batavia Downs, where it's the region's premier entertainment destination. All kinds of options every weekend. Get to Batavia. You'll have a hell of a time. And speaking of a hell of a time, let's get our panel in here. And yes, I am a king. We have Jake Micah. We have Donnie. And we have head of the table, but now fool of the court potentially, Michael J. Partham. Welcome, gentlemen. House of the Dragon after 2 years is fucking back. What a feeling.
What a time. What a time to be alive. We were talking about it a little bit the other day, I think, Maniac, that this renaissance of summer TV this year, I don't know what it is, but it's felt like big time. And there's nothing like HBO Sunday night, 9 o'clock, the whole timeline's locked in, watching together. And that feeling definitely, they restored that feeling last night.
Seriously. And Dunny and Parthy, obviously, you are newbies to What's Trainwreck Watching. So welcome to your first episode. I know, Parthy, you've done a couple movie reviews and everything before, but now we're going full time. House of the Dragon. Why don't we let you both kick it off? How'd you feel about the episode last night?
I thought it was great. I thought it was kind of everything you want out of a first episode where we, got the look back to the first season, even just had some regular Game of Thrones feel to it, some new characters introduced, but didn't push too much on us. Obviously the very end, but that was great and kind of unexpected. So yeah, I'm just glad to have, like you said, 2 years, glad to have it back on TV, another Sunday night show everyone can lock in for. And episode 1 didn't disappoint, if you ask me.
Yeah, from the start, it was good to see things like Winterfell and the Starks and the Wall, very, throwbacks to the original series that we didn't really see much at all in we didn't see it at all in the first season of House of the Dragon, at least. So those were nice little callbacks and, reminiscing about the better times of Game of Thrones. The crazy thing is, this is just the start. We still have at least a couple more spinoffs to come in the years to come, including Aegon's Conquest, which is going to be even crazier than this, I would dare imagine. I think after last season's finale, you were expecting this to basically be, dragons, fighting each other tooth and nail and, cage matches from the first episode. But no, they're still keeping the slow burn going, a very Triple H WWE-esque slow burn. They're building up to when the real fighting is going to start.
I was saying that Vagar, adding Vagar to Team Green late in the season last year, that was like a LeBron James-esque move, like adding a grizzled veteran, who was maybe on their last legs before, but now can come help the king win a couple championships. Like, you know what I mean? That was absolutely, a huge acquisition by Aemon, who does want to get king. But yeah, so we get into this episode, a son for a son. I think you guys have talked about Micah. I'll let you go in a second, but I enjoyed the episode as well. I think it was a no doubter great episode out of the gate. They had some great textual work to work with as well with the blood and cheese scenario, which we'll get to. Obviously, the culmination of what was a crazy episode that really throws you back into the Westeros vibe. But you're right, Parthy. We got to see the Winterfell. We got to see some other parts. We're in House of the Dragon season 1. We were kind of locked into season 1, unless Daemon was running off to the runestones to like Ice's former, betrothed or whatever. But we were all over the realm. It was great. We got to see Rhaenyra and grieving. Only one line from her: "I want Aemon Targaryen," and that's what we're gonna get this season for sure. That was setting the tone. But Micah, your thoughts on a son for a son?
Yeah, the whole episode in general, it set a different tone of the last season where it was like. You could see the anger, but the restraint in everybody. I think that was the interesting thing that you just mentioned, Partham, like the whole thing about them, like, us expecting it to be full on cage match, dragon v dragon. We're getting dragon stats on the timeline next to each other, things like that, tails of the tape, everything right away. But really, especially from, Rhaenyra and I saw this tweet when I think you sent it in earlier, which is
heartbreaking. Again,
and
there's a number of these that we'll go through that, this is why what made this show great. And there are some shows like this. I'm not saying it's just, Westeros or it's just Thrones, but that you watch the first time for entertainment and then you watch the second and third time to actually understand what the hell was going on.
Yeah, for sure. It's a lot to take in all at once. That is for sure. But the restraint that especially Allison and Rhaenyra showing to want to, like, they know war has to show up, but they're both this whole episode like, like, what can we do to put it off? At least at the beginning, obviously, Rhaenyra's like, what can we do to put it off? You know, Rhaenys is like, she's the only one with talking to the sea snake when he gets back. Like, she's the only one that's stopping this full-fledged war from happening right now in this room. And Alicent the same way. Aegon just like, hey, why can't we just go blow this up? Me and Aemon will fly in with our dragons. We'll blow everything. She's like, listen, we gotta exercise some caution. So that's still those feelings of love, remorse, whatever kind of complicated relationship Alicent and Rhaenyra still have going on. And then obviously we get to the ending of this episode and it's gonna flip completely on its head again.
Yeah. So obviously now one note I got to say real quick. I was surprised at how well the small folk did in this episode. Nobody got brutally like unnecessarily murdered or just like caught in like the crossfire of just absolute nonsense. Now there were some deaths, of course, like there are always deaths in Westeros because it's real, it's everything. But I didn't see anybody unnecessarily die. So like Micah said, shout out the small folk for a good start to the season. But I hate to say, it's not looking good for the Riverlanders at this point. Is what I'm thinking. I mean, because the Targaryens love to play away games. They love to go on the road. They're absolutely brother. They don't like to play at home. They don't want to mess at home. That's why they got or friggin' Vhagar on 24/7 security. Parthy, what were your thoughts on that? With Vhagar in the city, Greens are obviously in defensive mode. They're just trying to see if like this will hold, right? Essentially,
they're basically waiting for Rhaenyra to make the next move, and throughout the whole half of the episode, she's in grieving so much that she can't make the next move. And Rhaenys, touches on that, saying, I needed proof of my child's death before I could really move on, and that's what Rhaenyra needed herself. So now that she's finally got it, now she's wanting to make moves, and now she wants her revenge on Aemond, and that's where the blood and cheese move comes in at the end, and probably won't go exactly the way that she expected it to go, and it's just going to make everything blow up even more so than it already is. You talk about the small folk. I was surprised that Prince Aegon, showing a little sympathy for them, maybe because he's been whining and dining and whoring with them so much that he kind of, I don't know, maybe not relates to them, but appreciates them for their indulgence of his desires and his wanton needs or what have you.
Aemon is,
and of course the
absolutely
hand keeps having to pull him back, saying, no, we can't be too generous here.
Aemon is absolutely that leader who got abducted, and I say this with respect because it's happened in entertainment before, and became a communist. He's like, why can't that guy just have his sheep? Like, clearly, like I've seen like what a struggle this is. Like, just give him the sheep or whatever. And in the Grandmaster, when Otto Hightower was walking up the steps for the second time, I'm like, is this motherfucker serious? That was like Spoelstra taking a double timeout during a big playoff run for sure. But
it's also Aegon starting to take command a little bit by saying, even as his hand's walking up the stairs again to dismiss him, he says, "You know what?
Yes.
Hey, I'm insisting on this. We got to give the people making the weapons, a little bit of a lift here."
It's also just like a nice reminder. Like, this is a kid, like still a kid, just got named king, has all these responsibilities. No one's really explained to him what it is. He just thinks they're going to war. He's trying to help people, like keep them going. They're like, no. That's not what being king is. Like, we don't care about these people. We need those sheep for our dragons, bro. Like, what are you talking about? So it was like a learning curve too. Like he seemed confused. Like, what are we even doing this for then if we're just turning all these people away? Which is that little bit of human in there after he was, talking about just blowing up.
But
whatever.
Did you notice Larys Strong taking aside Aegon and sort of subtly hinting, maybe you want to find a little hand for yourself instead of, just picking the one that your father and your father's father had. And there's one of those little breadcrumbs that they're spreading out as that we'll see pay off in a couple episodes later.
Larys.
I was wondering when we were going to bring up Larys, because
Larys is always in everyone's business. Guy doesn't even have a foot, but he's talking to the king in private about his hand. Like, what the hell is happening here?
I caught myself watching last night, and obviously, Larys draws all the comparisons to Littlefinger from Thrones. And I think, even just after this first episode, Larys might be on a trajectory to be the much bigger weasel of those two. And, one of those guys, you love the character, but just absolutely have no idea what he's up to next. And he's such an important part of the show.
Yeah, he's like Varys and Littlefinger rolled into one.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's and he's even dirtier because you know that this guy straight up has no rules. It's just strictly like a final score, like end game run. He'll kill his family as evidence.
Yeah,
Like he has no reservations about doing anything to up his position. He's basically already like kind of like trampolined off of Allison at this point. He's having sidebars with the king.
Speaking of no rules and speaking of Alicent, certain people are kind of going back on their own rules or their own precedents that they sent earlier and kind of doing the things that they blamed Rhaenyra for or resented Rhaenyra for. I mean, hypocrite is the word that's pretty much going around people's mouths after they saw what was going down in this episode or who was going down in this episode. If you get my meaning.
Nice.
Loser. Kristen Cole. People are telling me I talked to a friend of mine, and this is a great point that, House of the Dragon just doesn't have that like great villain like throws it ahead Joffrey, and then it got right into Ramsay. How can you not want Kristen Cole to just catch a random quarrel to the fucking torso at this point? I mean, my goodness, guy. And next episode, he better have hell to pay because Alicent isn't going to be taking the receipts for any blame for that shit. It's going to have to be Kristen Cole, who is a little bit of safety. By the way, Kristen Cole just being a dead fish, clearly, like also in that scenario. Like don't forget that.
Well, let's give Kristen Cole a little bit of credit. I mean,
no credit.
I know he's basically a two-faced dick, but this is the guy that scored the princess and the Queen Alicent. I mean, he might be on a different level than Dom Mysterio at this point.
The Riz is crazy. It's got to be.
He's the classic, like, every girl when they first meet him loves him. Every guy from the beginning is like, oh no, this guy sucks.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
He's like an instigator. You love to have him on your team, and if he's on someone else's, you hate him. But I hate Kristen Cole. All my homies hate Kristen Cole.
He shouldn't have made it out of season 1. He somehow did, and he's just up to his old tricks as soon as this season starts.
That's what I was thinking. Like there might be something in this season with them, like sharing like something. I was not expecting like full out episode 1 and just like jump. It's been like how long has it been, bro? When did Viserys die in this time? Like it's like a week.
Dude, Viserys' body is still warm for sure. Like, there's no doubt.
Like what is going on here?
And they're already holding court. Aemon's got the Aegon. I love this one. I saw Aegon has the Aegoons.
He's doing some stepdad activity, hanging out with Aemon. They're plotting. Like, what's going on here?
Crazy.
Like, what are you doing?
Hey, Maniac, yes. To your point about people talking to you about there's not a great villain. I was thinking earlier today, where's the great hero in this? Where's our Jon Snow or even, any of the Stark? We just saw our first member of the Stark family, and we know they're, straight up, straight arrows here. But among the people we've seen in season 1 and that we're seeing again, who are we supposed to get behind? Besides Queen Rhaenyra, I guess.
There's no. And Rhaenyra is more of like an imperfect hero who was majorly wronged, for sure. Why you're rooting for her so much is because she literally had it like ripped from her or whatever. But then, of course, Rhaenyra is like a mid-level face, if we want to go WWE talking, but she got catapulted made on the basis. She's almost Cody Rhodes, realistically, basically. Like, Generalin, in my soul, someone took my Iron Throne. Like absolutely. So with that said, that's going to, and this leads to the perfect analogy of chaos, destruction, and don't get the fuck in his way, Stone Cold Steve Austin, that is Daemon Targaryen.
Oh, God, bro. This man choosing chaos at literally.
Oh my God! When I saw Daemon walking up to a gold cloak, oh my God! If you didn't think shit was about to get out of control at that point, my goodness.
Daemon is totally Randy Orton. He's a Viper.
Yes.
To be sure.
Yeah, true. In that regard, he is a little sneaky. He's sneaky with the hood. The hood.
The hood was sneaky. How fast was he on that dragon on his way to King's Landing after Rhaenyra comes in? It's like, I want Aemon. He's like 5 minutes. Over under, like had to be less. He's like, I'm getting
finally something to do. Finally, someone to kill. Mission.
Yeah.
That's how we got reintroduced to bro. He's like, we're going to burn down King's Landing right now. Like this is what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, what? So we were talking, right? It's been 2 weeks. Like it probably happened about 2 weeks ago. Like this whole shit started. They stole the throne. They found out about Jace or whatever, or Lucerys. And then obviously all this is going on. But yeah, I mean, when he heard, I want Aemon Targaryen, that was the meme set itself. It was a say less situation.
Say less.
Like literally, that was all Aemon needed to hear to go crazy. for sure. But we get into real quick because we'll talk blood and cheese to end the episode. But real quick, I want to talk seeds planted because we were talking about some other stuff. Obviously, if Lara Strong going to have an influence on the king, could the hand, could we get some turnover there potentially for sure. The other one, which was just like almost hitting you in the face with how blatant like the scene was like, this guy's going to be important. Alan in Driftmark.
Maniac, I had it in my notes, man. My second note, I was like, Alan's going to be a huge character.
Clearly, Alan is going to be massive because he just, I mean, a good guy pulled Lord Corlys from the water, which by the way, if Lord Corlys is fighting in armor is like an insane feat. Like you're basically like dead if you're in the water, right?
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be able to swim in 60 pounds of metal. But with that said, yeah. So let's start some speculation there. It's a point, Dunny. Did you have any notes on what you think he could be doing, or where eventually could he eventually? Now that we know that the heir to Driftmark is no longer, could this guy be a player for the Sea Stone chair?
Yeah, I don't know if I have like actual, specific expectations for him. He just, as soon as you met him in the show, he just felt like one of those characters who we saw in Thrones, who, for a season or two was just like a noble steed of a very important character, or a guy who's going to come up in a big episode and save someone's life again, like how he pulled him out of the water, or, make a big kill in an episode, or tip someone off about something bad that's going to happen. You just got that vibe that he was a good guy and someone who we're going to see a lot in this world.
Yeah, he might be the next Podrick or whoever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, he does have that feel.
As far as seeds being planted, you saw Cole and Aemon basically plotting together by a fireside chat. These guys are going to be like the tag team of doom out there. One of them's going to be leading the army. One of them's going to be riding their dragon. They're basically going to want to lay waste to everybody. And Daemon better, be prepared and be able to face them, because these two guys are just out for blood.
Now, for the booking is clearly trying to get to you to think like men are important here, like because they got us really big with the dragons last season. It was basically like anytime a dragon was involved, like checkmate almost, except for when when they were facing the crab eater or whatever, and he was like in like a cave or whatever. But besides, so like this season, it feels like early, especially with a lot of the previews, they're trying to say men are important. Like, you need the armies, especially so when they make these scenes go into everyone and kind of, bartering back and forth, it makes it feel less important. But you saw at the end, and we're getting into the last scene, so I'm even jumping ahead of that. But you saw at the season preview, the final part is fucking Kristen Cole in the dumbest haircut I've ever seen in all of Westeros, literally saying that the dragons are like running this war now, which is like just an insane thing to say. Like that's how big Kristen Cole's ego is that he thinks he's literally more than like the equivalent of Westeros is like weapons of mass destruction.
Right.
He is something else, bro. But that's the thing. It's a great point with Aemon, though, because they keep talking him up. That's the thing that for my seeds planted is they keep talking up how good of a fighter he is, and if you get close to him, like, you might have to do it.
True.
So I don't think he goes down by a dragon. I think it comes to a fight either with Daemon, if we're booking this, or is it Jace?
Daemon versus Daemon at some point,
or is it Jace? Does the brother get some revenge? Son versus son.
Aemon versus Daemon is Rock Reigns for sure. Like it's once in a lifetime. Like probably gonna go down in the Vegas of whatever Westeros equivalent that is.
Yeah, so that's what I'm interested in.
So
teasing that a little bit.
So with that said, season 2 of Game of Thrones has a classic scene where Joffrey finds out about all of King Bob's bastards, and he says, "I want him Dunzo. I want him crushed." And it's a classic scene. And we have a classic scene, a classic story to end this episode with blood and cheese. This was one where the longer it went, you just knew something was going to happen, because by the time that, blood was running around, like, I mean, he could have basically Zillowed the Iron Throne by the time with all the footage he had of that shit running around. But with that said, they're running around, perfect disguise. It took me a second. I know they whisked through it, but it took me a second to pick up that they were the rat catchers, and that like that kind of bid them like nobody paying attention to them, even when they ran into people, which is kind of like the ultimate like undercover. like because they were hidden in plain sight, obviously. And I didn't notice that actually they pointed it out that they were shown like 2 earlier times in the episode in like non-related scenes. So this is what you talk to, Game of Thrones kind of falling off in quality at the end of the seasons, or like season 7 and 8 with worser storytelling, worser reasoning, etc. Everything. House of the Dragon not falling into that trap there. So happy about that. But what did you guys think about this whole scene? And then I guess we can get into the fallout. I don't know how much you guys have looked into it about the literary equivalent. A lot of people have been talking about like a change they made from the book, which is kind of crucial. But what did you guys think of this scene? What did you think of execution? And unfortunately, I hate to say this, the murder of a child, but Team Black is on the scoreboard.
Yeah. I'll go first. I thought I kind of mentioned it at the top. The ability, I guess, or the decision for them to end the episode with 2 basically nobodies up until this point was probably a questionable move, but I think it paid off big time. I thought they did a really good job with that ending scene, and kind of, Maniac, you touched on, like, the longer it went on, I didn't know what was going to happen, but I could just feel it getting worse and worse. And I was like, there's going to be some sort of big thing that happens here, but it's probably going to be a fuck up. And it was a little bit of both there. I thought it was a really good ending to the episode. I just want justice for that damn dog that they made come along for the whole journey and then just kicked him at the end. I thought that was very sad. Obviously not as sad as what ended up happening afterwards, but justice for that dog.
That was almost like a Dark Knight equivalent. Like the dog was in on the heist, and then like he got taken out by one of the Jokers. Like along the way, like you're not needed anymore. Like that was terrible. A lot of people are in uproar about the dog, but Parthy, I know you got some thoughts on the BNC.
Well, I liked how they got to the beat of that story. Using Damon's basically his old squeeze, his Massaria, aka the White Worm, who we find out escaped the whole burning down of her place, and they'd really fallen out with each other. But Damon made it a transaction, and that's how he basically got into King's Landing, and he still had his connections with the White Cloaks, the Gold Cloaks, I should say. So that's how you get blood.
Well, I love to see that. It made sense.
Oh, yeah. And the other thing I liked is they basically pulled an audible. If you read the books, the Fire and Blood background of the whole history of Westeros, originally, I mean, they just went at it. They went right for the queen's young kids and basically made her choose between her 2 young sons. Here, they were gunning for Aemond in the first place by Rhaenyra's orders, and essentially they asked Daemon, well, what if we don't find him? We don't see his answer. I don't know if we don't know if he gave an answer or not, but they basically had to pull an audible and get some kind of a son for a son, and it's not the one that they wanted. And it's basically going to be another case of, well, this isn't what we intended, and it's just going to make things escalate so much worse. Not unlike, what Aemon was trying to do with Lucerys, trying to scare him, but Vhagar ends up eating him alive, and it just becomes so much more than what they intended, and it's just going to make people on both sides, that much more mad. Losing children is basically, burn it all down. It turns you into the Mad King, essentially, if you don't have your wits about you and some sort of control.
Mute monster maniac.
Mute monster. Sorry about that. I will say one thing. It's one thing to get fucking Vhagar, going off with her dementia and just chomping on like equivalent of a box of goldfish, basically. It's another thing to have your son just friggin' deheaded in your own castle, like that. If Aemon, and maybe that's why they gave us a smidge of a good. Aegon or whatever. Aegon, sorry, I keep saying Aemon. Aegon.
It's very close.
But they gave him a smidge of like humanity. Like this isn't that bad of a guy, because this is gonna break him in half.
That was
like just the paranoia. Anyone who wants to manipulate him going forward, he's gonna be wide open for manipulation, because he's gonna be looking to be as secure as possible, as safe as possible. I got backstabbers. He's gonna think someone betrayed him. Clearly.
Can we talk about Helena? Basically, not so much predicting it, but hinting at it with her fear of the rats.
For sure. So
they ought to make her hand to the king.
Yeah.
So definitely Master of Whisperers for sure. And then they just need a translator right next to Helena. But yeah, we were talking about this in the chat. So Parthi and I picked up on, and it wasn't overtly obvious, but like, you know, because she's kind of has those crazy things. By the way, there's a hilarious scene where Aegon like kind of hears her talking and like nobody is paying any attention to her. So it's not even bad on his guard. He's like, the queen like spurns many mysteries. Like he says it like in a very like nice way, like, you know, but obviously is just like wants to be done with the situation. But yeah, Helena basically can predict the future. When she says bad things are going to happen, when she says she isn't worried about the dragons, she's worried about the rats. You better think that something's coming in the sewers, gents. For sure. Oh
Jake,
my goodness. Yeah, definitely.
My main thing, I think I lost that train of thought there. But yeah, with Helena, you guys enlightened me because it's not something I ever would have noticed without going back, seeing it, didn't even think about it. And now it's just even more eye-opening, like how powerful. I know it was jumping off of Maniac's point about Aegon is that with Alicent, we know like how she reacted when Aemon lost his eye and everything. We just saw how Rhaenyra reacted and going out for vengeance after losing his son. But yeah, like we don't know what Aegon's gonna do, and he's shown that he, like as you said, that kindness that he had, and also a little bit of crazy, a little partying, you know, wanting to just burn everything down when he's at the small council table. So who knows what his thought is going to be? I'm sure the security and everything else is too, but also find out who did this and why they did it and go burn down their city is probably a thought that he's going to have too. So I'm interested to see kind of the escalation from Aegon's side here.
And speaking of Alicent, you know, little changes from the books to make people a little more sympathetic. Going back to the second to last episode from the first season, where she was very reluctant to, you know, try and usurp the throne from Rhaenyra. And even in this episode, she's still trying to sue for peace, even though you know,
she's insane. Alicent is disconnected. I'm sorry, Parthi. I got to scream over you because that is how bad Alicent is disconnected from the thread of reality. She's thinking that Rhaenyra is going to even respond to a message at this point. She's crazy. Like the guy literally had to be like, oh, from the note of you apologizing like for the death of her son. Like he had to like kind of talk her back to reality here. And then you have Aemon. We haven't even talked about Aemon kind of dealing some fire to Kristen Cole, being like, oh yeah, my mom like saying like I like started the war when she had a council to usurp the throne like herself. Like literally, like did you like that was almost like a quick offhand comment, but you could tell Aemon is literally like a Han Solo of the Targaryen family. He's doing whatever the fuck he feels like. That's why he was a 10-year-old we're trying to climb on Vhagar. Like Vhagar was like climbing like a skyscraper. It was insane. I'll never forget that scene.
Well, it's also the one thing that could be a difference in this war is I have much more faith in Rhaenyra's small council than the people that are getting counsel for Alicent. They don't know what the hell is going on in there. There's no connection. There's nothing. There's like 4 people in there that are all have different ideas of what they're supposed to do. And with Rhaenyra, they're all locked in, watching her, listening to her every word, and taking that as action. It's a big difference between the two councils there.
I feel like Alicent, Otto, and Cole are all 3 different types of out of touch.
Yes.
Yeah, true.
Well, I think Otto knows what time it is. He knows it's going to come to war, and they got to get all the allies that they can. They can't wait around for Rhaenyra to make the next move. He wants to, you know, go at it right now.
Do you think Otto wants to go at it right now?
I think he knew it from the start. I think he knew it from the time that little Aegon was born that it was going to come to this, and he's been plotting behind you know Alicent's back, you know, for years that he's going to make this succession happen.
He would have killed Rhaenyra like 15 years ago if it was up to him.
It does seem like he's getting more uncomfortable the less things go his way, though. So I wonder, I don't know. I feel like Otto's kind of been skating by a little too long. I wonder if there's something coming for Otto here in the coming episodes.
Well, yeah.
I'll tell you what, love him or hate him, and I do hate him.
He might be replaced.
Love him or hate him, and I do hate him. Oh, he's got to be replaced for sure. A scene like that doesn't happen for an eventual non-hand replacement for sure. Right. But yeah, I hate or love Otto Hightower. Great character when he's on the screen every time. I'll say that for sure. Yeah. And then real quick, gents, obviously got to pay the bills. Shout out to the sponsor here on What's Trainwreck Watching, Batavia Downs. And that brings us, of course, to our favorite segment going forward to the season. Batavia Downs Bad Dragon of the episode, the BDBD. I'm going to go ahead with this one, guys, if you don't mind, okay? Unfortunately, Vagar. Sorry, Vagar. You're too busy on cruise control above King's Landing, and you're getting got by blood and cheese. You're essentially worthless. You're like the world's most expensive home security system when a burglar just walked in right through the sewer. So with that said, Vagar, you're the Batavia Downs Bad Dragon of the Week. Hope to do better next time. With that said, any final thoughts, guys, as we go forward? Obviously, I don't know. So we did talk about the change from the book. In the book with Blood and Cheese, the Blood and Cheese guy asked them which one you want to save or whatever, which one you want to kill. She wants to kill the younger one. They go to the younger one. Your mama wants you dead, and then killed the older one. Like, which is like fucking like horrifying for a child, obviously. Like, bro, I don't know why they switched off of that, because like that's awesome as a story. Like, again, I don't ever want that to happen. We're talking about a fictitious world, but I don't know. I'm sure they had some reason for why they went away from that.
To make Rhaenyra look less, they wanted her to have someone go after the guy that killed her son, which is Aemond, which is just.
And the key thing
we think is justice.
The key thing to remember too,
for a son, then it would just be like, okay, we know you lost a son, but that's horrifying to have one of these little kids killed.
A key thing to remember too is why did I just forget it? Blew it.
I have
plausible deniability.
Yeah.
Go, Denny.
No, my last thoughts here, and just because we didn't talk about him earlier much, but for the need of a hero, I think this is a name. And just actually, I thought one of the best scenes from the episode last night was Jace is a potential hero for this season, I think. And him going to tell Rhaenyra, kind of like basically just give the message from Winterfell and visiting the wall. That scene was so good, in my opinion. Like, he wanted to talk to her as much as he could as his queen, but, it just ended up being, this is my mother. We haven't talked about this and the death of my brother, and the way they both just broke down. I thought that was one of the better scenes of the episode.
Oh, between flying to Winterfell and coming back home, he definitely went from like doesn't want to do his homework to like Mr. Steal Your Girl. Like, right. So he's definitely a prime hero candidate for sure. And yeah, we'll be looking for heroes. I know what I wanted to talk about. I apologize. So if you've looked at any of the leaks at all, again, nothing major storyline wise, but I guess we're lining up for episode 4. Has anyone seen those whispers?
Mm-hmm.
I've heard about them.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen a little bit.
Again, so we're likely on deck. What? Maybe like a primarily army battle or something, or a skirmish around like episode 3.
Oh, it's gonna be dragons.
Maybe like as they gather. Well, no, but I'm saying, and then you're building to Dragonthon in episode 4. I'm assuming it's called the Dance with Dragons, right? A Dance of Dragons, episode 4, I believe.
Yep.
Enough said. And speaking of enough said, thank you for following along. We are back to another season of House of the Dragon. I think we are all pumped. Shout out to Michael of House Parthen. Shout out to Donnie of House Holden. Shout out to Jake of House Micah. Because remember, folks, whatever side you have declared for, the Greens or the Blacks, we wish you good fortune in the wars to come. Good night now.